Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Vamily Show, the very awesome family show, season 2, episode 34. And today with me, I have an author, Mbiotidem Bassi, and you wrote a book called Zone of Success. So, what does the zone of success entail, and why were you inspired to write the book?
Well, thank you so much, Bob. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm excited to be here. And why did I write the book? A couple of years ago, I went to work and excited to show up at work. And when I got to work, there was a list on the table. And when I looked on the list, it was a list of names of people who had qualified to get the yearly raise. And I looked on the list, and somehow my name was not on there. Bob, I was angry.
I bet. I bet.
Because I played by the rules. I showed up on time for work. I took extra shift when my boss needed me. I went above and beyond, and I just expected to get compensated. And so when my name was on the list, I lost it. I was so mad, and I was thinking of all the creative ways to tell off my boss. And so, but luckily, I had time to cool off. 3 hours later, while at work, I came to my senses. I said, I'm about to them. Why are you mad for not getting, for not qualifying for 25-cent raise?
Hmm.
I was losing my cool over 25 cents. And it was then that I made up my mind to add more value to myself, to make an investment in myself so that no one will ever hold me back from making 25 cents whenever I want to make it. And that
Right.
set me on the journey of personal development. And that's how I'm here today. And that's how I ended up writing the book, The Zone of Success.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I tell people. It's funny they teach you, they try to teach you economics, supply and demand. And when you think about how little is when you start working for people that you sell your time for, that's such a limited resource. You don't even know how much of a limited resource it is for yourself. So it could be, 30 years worth, it could be 90 years worth, you don't know. And so, yeah, to get that angry over, 25 cents more an hour, is really silly when you think about it. And really makes you think. And one of the things uh, you said you believed as a young man was that everybody has a purpose. And where did that idea come from? Where did that idea enter your brain when you were younger? And you're like, that kind of makes sense to me.
Well, I think, Bob, when I was young, growing up, one of the things, because, okay, everyone's life is already revealing something. Your life is already demonstrating something. And so for me, for a long time, my life was revealing something that I was called to be a speaker. I was called to inspire people. I was called to help people. But I did not understand what that meant. So the only way I could express that was, well, maybe I should be a medical doctor because doctors care for people. Doctors care, listen to people, they take care of people. That's what was all I knew. But but how do I believe? How did I know everyone had a purpose? I talk about that in my book. I was talking to a young man, and the young man said to me so confidently, he says, I'm about to them. Everybody does not have a purpose. And I smiled and I said, so why do you believe that? He says, well, because that's the truth. I said, I'm going to ask you three questions. I said, what did you want to do as a child? And he thought about it for a moment. He says, well, as a child, I always wanted to study computers, to play with computers, to do programming. I said, okay, that's all. That's interesting. I said, what? Okay, the next question I asked him is, what do you fill your time with? When you have the opportunity to do anything you want to do, what do you spend your time doing? He says, I spend my time reading about computers, hanging around computers, playing video games. And I said, okay, the third question I want to ask you is, what if you were taking going to an island and I gave you the basic amenities like food, clothing, all that good stuff? What else would you want to take with you? He says, actually, I would like to get my computer with me, and I would like to get some computer books. And right then, Bob, in front of me, he had an epiphany. I'm supposed to spend my life with computers. Now, Bob, if I ask that question to anybody, other people, everyone is going to have separate answers. So
Right.
everyone has something they were created to do. We've just got to listen to it and it will come forth.
Yep. That's so true. That's so true. It takes a while. Sometimes you don't know it at first either. Sometimes you almost stumble onto it in your life, what you actually enjoy doing without realizing it.
Boom, Bob, you just said something. You just said that's beautiful. You stumble onto it. And for me, for a lot of years, I was waiting. I grew up spiritual. I grew up in the church. And so I would run from one spiritual leader to the next. Please tell me what I'm supposed to do with my life. But what you just said is the answer. You have to start moving because I call it what there's something I call the triangle of success. The triangle of purpose. How do you know what your purpose is? Three things. Does it bring fulfillment? Does it excite you? Does it bring you joy? If it fulfills those three things, you're working in your purpose.
Mhm.
Once it stops bringing fulfillment, joy, and exciting you, then go to what brings you those three things. As long as Jack Canfield said something. He says joy is the guardian system of the soul. So when whatever brings you joy, he says just do more of that. When it brings you joy, that's your purpose.
Right. Right. And it's so hard to get there, and you have to, going back to, you said you grew up religious. You have to have faith sometimes to step out and take a chance on doing what you love, even if sometimes people around you don't necessarily believe in you. You gotta you if you believe in yourself and you have that faith, you know there's ways to make things work out. um, and that kind of goes into some of the things you touch on in your book of like manifestation and dreams are reality. If you can picture it in your mind and stuff like that, it gives you that goal to work towards. And I think that's the real key is making that concrete in your mind where you can have that picture to work towards. And the work part is, I think, the part a lot of people forget in that.
That's right, Bob. I mean, okay, what you just talked about is the process of manifestation. So if you have a big dream and you have a big goal, how do you make it happen? First of all, T. Haveki, I learned this from T. Haveki, the author of the Millionaire Mind. He said it starts with thoughts. So whatever you want to have in life, whatever goals you want to achieve, can you see yourself having it already? So thoughts, and then thoughts leads to feeling. Your thoughts produces an emotion, a feeling, and that feeling creates an action, causes you to leads to action, and the action leads to results. So now the action part is what you talked about. For a long time I was setting, Bob, I was the guy at the beginning of the year. I had a long list of goals. But the only problem, I didn't have any action plan.
Right.
So you know what happened at the end of the year? Nothing happened. I was always at the same spot every year after year, and I just became more frustrated because I thought they told me just write down your goals and everything. It will just come to pass magically. It will just manifest. It doesn't work that way. It's like success is work.
Mhm.
So definitely, like you said, you have to work, and that's what a lot of people miss. They don't want to do the work. You have to put in the work. And so somebody may be asking, Bob, but I don't know what work to do. I have a goal. I don't know what to do. It's simple. Do you have somebody else who has already accomplished the goal you want to accomplish? Then study their life.
Right.
Listen to their podcast. You can listen to Bob's podcast like you're doing now. You could read books of people who have accomplished what you want to accomplish, and then repeat what they've done. Because if I take the actions they've taken, I will get the results they have.
Yep. Yeah, and especially now with the internet, you can search and figure out a way to get started some way somehow. It's not like the old days going to the card catalog in the library and hopefully
Yeah.
that's been updated. um, uh, and you talk about something called the two. gaps of success. So what are those two gaps that you notice that people usually have?
Well, thank you so much, Bob. That's right. There are two gaps, and for example, take a person who wins the lottery, right? They win millions of dollars, and the statistics have shown that within 3 to 5 years of winning the lottery, most of them have lost everything. And what was the problem? The problem was they got the money in the physical, but in the spiritual, they did not have the money. So they kept seeing themselves, okay, the money in the physical stirred up what I call imposter syndrome in the spiritual. So because of that conflict, what happened? Your mind is always trying to balance you out. So success has two parts. You have the physical part and you have the spiritual part. The spiritual part is how you see yourself. Someone rightly said, you cannot outperform your self image. So if I see myself as a failure, Bob, it doesn't matter where you take me. You give me $1 million and say, hey, start a business. The business is going to fail. You take me and put me in the most successful sales area and say, hey, Mbiotidem, can you sell this book? It's going to fail. Why? Because I see myself as a success. So, first of all, for you to get success in the physical, you want to become that same identical image in the spiritual. And the easiest way to do it is to close your eyes and visualize yourself as that thing that you want. And when you consistently visualize that self, you begin to change the image in your subconscious. And the subconscious controls over 95% of what we do in life.
Yep, yep, for sure. And Van Life with Gina, thank you for becoming a new member today. Um, and this, that the subconscious stuff goes into what you talked about, page 50, I believe it was. Um, uh, Positive thinking. Um, I kind of came to realization um, recently that until my mind was already positive, I couldn't take any like motivational messages and stuff like that. Like I heard you talking somewhere else about listening to Les Brown, and when I heard him talk and how he said, hey, I just when I wanted to be a radio DJ, and I just kept going and calling all the time and saying, hey, I'll do it, and I'll do it for free and all this kind of stuff, and hearing him talk, and that kind of really helped me out. Um, and so um, I think your subconscious can't accept those messages until you change your conscious perception.
That's right. And Bob, I think you just said something that's powerful. You talk about, for me, one of my the transformation that happened in me, because when I made that initial transformation to make more than $25, so I never have to rely on my boss, I, I was not the guy I am today. So to become this guy, I had to lean on mentors.
Mhm.
I had to lean on. And so most of the mentors, I could not touch them. I could not reach them. YouTube was my friend. So that's when I listen to people like Les Brown. I will listen to him for hours. And he would say, just, you got to believe it. You got to know it's possible. And that's the whole idea about the thinking. Because, like you just said, it starts with your mind. Whatever you believe is possible will become possible for you. But before you can even believe it's possible, it's Les Brown says something which is, I'll thank you for mentioning Les Brown. I love him. He's my mentor. I listen to him all the time. He says, okay, your mind right now, when I was where I was before, my mind had this negative beliefs it was running and about them. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You can never write a book. You can never become what you want to be. So those negative thoughts are constantly, someone calls them automatic negative thoughts. So they are running in the subconscious mind. Now, when I want to change my life, I have to deal with those thoughts. So the only way to do that is to start listening to somebody else saying about them, you've got greatness in you, you've got ability in you can do the impossible. And I had to listen, Bob. I had to listen to that for over 2, 3 years.
Mhm.
before I could finally accept it. And so that's where when I talked about the positive thinking starts, the positive thinking starts the process. But then again, the positive thinking has to lead to that subconscious reprogramming where you reprogram the subconscious mind. So I went from listening to Les Brown telling me I could be great to actually every day, Bob, I was looking in the mirror and saying, Mbiotidem, you're great. You're a best-selling author. You are amazing. You can do anything anyone else can do. You got greatness in you. And I began to say that to myself so I could reprogram my mind and reprogram my destiny and reprogram my future.
Yep. Yep. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier, the four-letter word work. Because you have to work to change your mindset too. You can't just go, I hope my mind changes, and get there. Um, and you kind of have a way to help work to get there with your having smart goals, and you have a methodology called TAMES. So how would you describe, I guess, in shorter format than the book, kind of like a movie, how people can have smart goals and then use that TAMES method that you have to achieve them?
Well, thank you so much, Bob. I think a lot of people, when I grew up, just like a lot of people, we heard about SMART goals. Your goals have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. But that sounded great. It sounded nice, but I couldn't really. It was not working for me. What I did, I had my mentor. One time I was talking to my mentor and I said, man, how do I achieve my goals? And he says, well, people talk about SMART goals, but I like to talk about emotional goals. Those are goals that are connected to you. And so that began to frame my mind to begin to look at goals differently. And I came up with a method that has worked for me and it's still working for me. That's what I use. I call it TAMES. It's called T. T is for time bound. Your goals have to be time bound. Time bound. A is for accountability. You've got to be accountable to somebody. I don't care what goals you have. If you don't have that accountability component, I can guarantee you it may not happen. So type A, T is for time bound, A is for accountability, M is for it has to be measurable. Can you tell when it's accomplished? How much by when? I was just talking to a lady who just yesterday on Facebook. I said, hey, last year you said you were going to be working on your book. What's going on? She says, well, I'm still working on it. And I said, can you tell me when you're going to write it? She says, I want to take my time. Bob, I can guarantee you next year I'll ask her again. She's gonna say the same thing because it's not measurable. So M is
Mhm.
for measurable, E is for emotional. Why is this goal important to you? We will do more for other people than we'll do for ourselves. So me, my why is to take care of my mom, and so that gives me the discipline, the consistency, whatever I need. It gives me the drive to stay committed. So your goals have to be emotional. Find an emotional component. Are you doing it for your family? Are you doing it for your wife? Are you doing it because you want to take your mom to Cancun, to Bahamas when everything opens up? And then S is for strategy. You've got to have a clear strategy on how you plan to achieve the goal. So that's how the team's method of the goal setting works.
Right. Yeah. The when you talk about being measurable and all that kind of stuff, that's where I think a lot of people, they forget that part. they forget they forget that part on it, and they go, "Oh, I'm going to do it one day. I'm going to get there." One day might never come. I heard you, talking about losing your dad, and
Mm,
and about losing that wisdom,
mm,
and that has hit me the older that I've gotten, where I'm like, you know, I'd like advice on what to do as this old of a man and what he did. And you're right. When you're younger, you don't listen to him, but that it's the wisdom that you miss out on, where you're like, man, I wish I could have had him around for some advice.
That's so true. As a teenager, my dad was this old guy that didn't know anything about life. But what I didn't realize was my dad had been through the stage of teenage years, and he had gone ahead and he had some wisdom. And I, I didn't know. And I thought I knew everything. My dad would tell us read the books on the shelf, do write book reports. You got to study. You've got to work hard. It just didn't make sense to me. And then as I began to grow older, I realized like, oh my God, my dad had so much wisdom, but he was dead. I couldn't ask him, and that's why I advise people. I don't care who you are. You got to have a book. Because now this book, my kids can read it and they can know how I'm thinking. My kids can read it to know how to solve the challenges of life. So, Bob, I recommend everyone, I don't care if you sell a book, if you get to sell it, it's not about selling it, it's about putting something down so that your generations can have something to hold. You've probably read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This book was written years and years ago. We're still reading about it and talking about it. Why? Because the man took the time to write down the wisdom of the ages in the
Right,
book.
right, right. And that's something that you you talked about, in having a legacy, that kind of stuff to leave behind, and yeah, having your words written down, in case you're not around. Well, if your kids want advice, it's there for them to seek. Um, and um, there's a tension in when you're trying to form new habits,
Hmm.
where it's almost like, the devil on one shoulder saying, no, you go back to the old ways, it's a lot easier. Why do you want to try anything new?
I'm laughing because that's so true. If you've ever tried to do a new habit, practice a new habit, well, I'm going to wake up every day and do my morning meditations. After the second day, it's like, my God, I need to sleep longer. So there's a part of your brain, your brain is always trying to keep you safe. And so to keep you safe, it wants to make sure you're repeating the same routines continually. So when you want to change, it's your brain is actually going to stop you from changing. So that new habit tension is what they call cognitive dissonance. You're introducing a new idea into your brain, and it's like, no, 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 I can't have this idea because this is going to require too much work, and so it's going to stop you. So when people begin to have this tension, it feels so uncomfortable. Have you ever, okay, for example, Bob, look at my hands. If I told you interlock your hands, what you're going to do, you're going to find that this is more comfortable. But if I went like this, it feels so uncomfortable. I said, oh
Right,
my, no, no, I got to put it back. That's what the brain is doing. That's the cognitive dissonance. That's the tension. That's the tension that stops a lot of people. So when they feel uncomfortable, when they feel like, oh my God, I'm not getting it, they want to quit. When I was working, this is my second book. It's an Amazon #1 bestseller. And when I was writing my first book, Bob, I just wanted to quit before I started. And I had to, because I understood this new habit tension. I pushed through. So when that tension happens, understand it's your brain trying to stop you, but push through. It comes up with as fears. It comes up as its insecurity. It comes on as doubt. It comes on as ah, I don't know if I can do this. Whatever it is, however way it comes on, accept it and just say, I hear you, but I'm going to push through, and just push through, and it will go away.
right, right. And Forever Best Friend, she loves the idea of creating something for generational information. When we were talking about the books, and she also says writing takes discipline.
It does.
Um, and so, did you use your FIDs to success to pursue your writing there?
Yeah, okay, yeah. So FIDs, that's what I just said just now. That's the fears. Whenever you go to do something, you want to do something big. I don't care what it is. You want to jump off an airplane, or you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. It's going to stir up fears. It's going to stir up insecurities. It's going to stir up doubts. So those three things, everyone, I don't care who you are, whatever. Bill Gates has experienced it. Bob Proctor, you name it, Elon Musk, all these guys have experienced it. It's part of that cognitive dissonance where the mind is trying to get you to quit. So to get success, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, to play around the fears, to accept those fears, to accept those insecurities and those doubts. For me, my insecurities was, Bob, my insecurities was like, well, I gotta lose weight before I show up. I grew up in Nigeria, have an accent, and I'm like, well, I gotta work on my accent so the Nigerian accent is gone, then I'll show up. Listen, the people who have accents and they're successful. The people who are not the ideal body weight and they're successful. So whatever excuse I had, somebody else had already overcome that. That became my strength. So to work in success, embrace your fears, insecurities, and doubts.
Right. And that reminds me of I was listening to Steven Tyler of Aerosmith talk, and he said, I always, I was taught to, I was seeing like perfect pitch and all this kind of stuff. And he was like, it wasn't until I took my voice with all the little imperfections it had and everything, that's when I became successful, because it was my own voice. And I wasn't trying to be, do the perfect and be afraid of not hitting the right pitch or whatever. So, you probably notice that now that you talked about it, other people will probably notice that kind of story in a lot of people's success.
No, that's true, because for me, Bob, for the last 3, 4 years, that's all I do. I study successful people. I'm a product of many people. I'm a product of mentors who have poured into me through books, mentors who I've never met, but I've consumed their materials on YouTube. So I understand when I talk about the FI days, it's normal. So when I try to do something big and I'm afraid, I'm like, okay, great, and about them, I understand that fear is normal. We're going to push through. And what I do is, and this is what I want people to do, when you're trying to do something big and you feel scared, or you don't have any blueprint on how to do it, find somebody who's already done that and study their life. For me, that person, the person, I call it your beacon of hope. I talk about that in my first book, In Pursuit of Purpose. My beacon of hope was Jonathan Sprinkles, an African American guy who calls himself the Americans Connection coach. This guy came into, I remember the first time meeting him in 2016. He came into a room full of Caucasians, Hispanics, African Americans, and he got the room moving. I'm like, oh my God, that's what I want to be.
Right.
So, Bob, I followed Jonathan Sprinkles. I chased him. And when I started following him, I went on all the social media platform. Any video he had on YouTube, I was listening to it. I invested in his materials. Why? He became my beacon of hope. He became the guy that showed me it's possible. So whatever dreams we have, whatever goals we have, it's possible. You just got to find the right person that can help you reach that goal.
Right. Right. For sure. The right mentor, and that kind of goes when you talk about along with environment. You have to have the right environment for success.
Yes, Bob, you need that. I think I talk about that in my book. Two environments. You have the toxic environment and you have the empowering environment. Toxic environment is people around you who are like, well, Mbiotidem, you're not good enough. Who are you to write a best-selling book? What do you think you know that you're going to write in a book? Well, someone else has written that book. So that's a toxic environment. It's not helping me to reach my goals. Those are the environments I want you to cut yourself out of.
Mm-hmm.
Friendship is not, you can't force me to be your friend. It's a choice I have to make. And if you are not empowering me to reach my goal, I cut you off. So the environment, it's important. And for me, one of the things I began to do every day, like Bob, when I get in my car, I don't listen to music, not because I don't want to. It's just that's a time for me to learn. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to podcasts like yours. I'm listening to podcasts like Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, How I Built It, Guy Raz, and I'm listening to these different podcasts. Why? Because I need to feed my mind. I need to place myself in an environment of possibilities. Because there are going to be days where I'm going to be discouraged. There are going to be days when I want to quit. And it's in those moments, those words that those people have been speaking to me is going to be my anchor that keeps me grounded. So your environment is important when you're trying to achieve something big and you're trying to reach success.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. And it's one of the overlooked areas. you can only do so much, but if you have a lot of negativity around you, eventually it creeps back into uh, what
What you're trying to do.
you're trying to. Yeah, exactly. Um, and what made um, what originally made you just have the spark and desire to write that first page? Because like you're saying, it was hard. So what did you finally have to tell yourself to kick your butt into gear to write that first page down?
Well, after I wrote my first book, In Pursuit of Purpose, a lot of people kept asking questions, and I noticed they were not making the step they needed to make to get into that zone. Because I think you had asked me that question in the beginning. I don't think I answered it. What's the zone of success? The zone of success is an arena where success catches up with you because you've been practicing the right habits, the right thoughts, and the right emotional habits to ensure you get success. So it's basically that arena where success catches up with you. You've made yourself attractive to success. So what made me to be able to write the book, that first page, was people were, I wrote the first book, they read it, and I saw they were still not doing what they needed to do. So I said, you know what? Let me write another book and show them how to do it. So, okay, again, you can have a desire to write a book and never do it. I was at a seminar in Houston last year, October, and the lady said, you know what? She teaches people how to write their book and make their book make their book, turn their book into the income, into streams of income. And she said, right now I want everyone to get their phones out. So we all got our phones. She says, now I want you to write on your Facebook, your status, I'm so happy that I have a new book coming out. And I'm thinking, I don't know, I can't do that. That's not me. And she says, I'm going to see how many of you here are coachable, because many of you are not coachable. You're not going to do it. And I say, you know what? I'm coachable. I'm going to do it. So I wrote it. And she said, when people say, oh, congratulations, don't respond, thank you so much. No, just tell them, check your inbox. And when they check their inbox, go into their inbox and say, hey, listen, I would like to include you in my book. And they'll be like, oh my God, really? How? And you say, yeah, you just have to pre-order the book. So I ended up pre-selling the book. And Bob, that was the reason I was able to complete the book. Remember, we talked about the teams, and the second letter in teams is A, accountability. That became my accountability component, because everything that happened with Corona at the beginning of the year just threw my business in a different direction. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't have time to write the book. But people had already paid me for the book in October. I had to get the book out. So that's one of the reasons
Wow.
I was able to get the book done. I had accountability.
Wow. It's quite a story behind the book. And so anybody out there, if you want to get it, you can get it on Amazon, uh, Zone of Success, by Mbatin Bassi. And I want to say thank you so much for being here today. And everybody that's been hanging out with us in the chat, thank you for being here.
Bob, also, sorry, Bob. They can also, if you want an autograph copy, if you're within the United States, you can get it on the website for the book, entering the zone of success.com. And you can purchase it there, an autograph copy, and I'll sign it for you and send it out to you.
All
Sorry,
right.
go ahead.
Entering the Zone of Success.com.
Entering the zone of success.com.
Awesome. So you can go there, get an autograph copy, and you'll be able to, when he blows up and he's the next, Tony Robbins, then you'll have that to look on and be like, I knew him when. So that's the way I look at it, because I see with this, this is probably just the second book of many. I'm sure you've got a idea for a third one already.
Yes, I do. Because Bob, I also, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, so I coach people. When I coach people, I'm also, but I think the biggest thing for me, I'm a student, I'm a reader, I have mentors, I have coaches. And so as I'm learning, as I'm talking to my clients, I get ideas. And so I already have yes, I do have an idea for a new book, and I'm going to be working on that very, very soon.
All right. And they'll be able to catch that. Here, let me pop this up on the screen for everybody to see. They'll be able to catch that on entering the zone of success.com. You can go there and keep up with you, and then once once things get back to relative normal, I'm sure you'll be doing speaking dates and stuff as well. So that'll be neat to see.
That's right. So once everything opens back up, I'll be out there speaking and showing up in your city. And also, people can keep in touch with me. Go on my social media platforms. It's Mbiotidem at Mbiotidem on Instagram, at Mbiotidem.Bassi at Facebook and LinkedIn.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for being here, everybody that's been here in the chat. Thank you for being here, and everybody that's listening later. And like I always say, and you can read in his book, stop waiting for life to happen and make life happen. And I will see you guys next time.